Breath of the Wild is a game that came out March 3rd, 2017 for the Wii U and Nintendo Switch to critical and commercial acclaim. And while the game was innovative to the open world genre and games as a whole in many ways, it's not perfect. Don't get me wrong, it's a good game. There's definitely fun to be had here. I mean, I even have over 100 hours clocked on the game and beat it all with 120 shrines beaten, all memories collected, and all divine beasts beaten. But with the sequel coming out, there is definitely room for improvement. And with Breath of the Wild 2 originally supposed to be DLC, it looks like we're definitely getting something here. But now, without further delay, let's dive into Breath of the Wild and talk about ways to improve it with the sequel. Yeah, look at this, guys. I'm the Green Arrow. These goblins, you're not gonna suspect a thing. I'm gonna hit him with the line. I'm gonna hit them. I'm gonna hit them. You have failed, city. Huh? What? Why do the bows break? Especially the steel and metal ones. Bows don't break. At least not as often. And they aren't as common apart from the string breaking. And even then, I don't even think that's very common for the strings to break. Even though, yeah, it does happen. You can always replace it. Why do the bows and swords combust into like a million tiny pieces? And with that, why can't we repair bows and swords? Why can't we have something to counteract the weapons breaking? We should be able to go to a village or stable to repair our weapons, or even our house at Hateno Village and an anvil. Even Minecraft, a game that came out 10 years ago, has an anvil to repair your sword. This is something I would like to see implemented in a Breath of the Wild 2, or just not have the swords break. Another area where Breath of the Wild 2 could improve over the first one is more voiceovers. Breath of the Wild had voiceovers, but that was only during important cutscenes, like flashbacks, and then like some scenes. But that it just felt weird swiping back and forth because you still had to read quite a bit, and then, but it's either one or the other. You either have dialogue and voiceovers or you don't. It just feels weird flopping back and forth. Like with the scene with Impa, you're reading, and all of a sudden it cuts to black, and then you're like, "Oh, what the heck? There's dialogue. Like, where did that come from?" And and even you could, just give us an option to either have it on or off. While we're on the subject of more voiceovers, give us an option to have Link talking, because in this one, you say quite a bit as Link, even though you don't hear him speak. And it would have been, it'd be a great way to improve the dynamic between Link and Zelda, because we'd be able to hear Link talk. Breath of the Wild's story is kind of weak. I mean, yeah, it's okay. Zelda trying to uncover her awaken her powers to stop the Calamity Ganon when he comes back. But it's all told through memories. Like, everything already happened with Link, waking up from his 100-year sleep because of the Calamity breaking out and taking over all the Guardians and destroying the Hyrule. But that's pretty much it when it comes to story, because everything's told through flashbacks. Everything already happened. The champions, they're all dead already. And it just doesn't feel like a step up from previous stories, like in Ocarina of Time, where Link is just like a 10, 9, 12-year-old kid sent on a journey, and matures into a 16 or 17-year-old to stop Ganon, and eventually, sent back in time to Majora's Mask and sent on a, or like, just with that dark story and all that. With like its dark tones and undertones, the Twilight Princess, another Link with just becoming a farmer boy, becoming an inspiration and, an idol basically for the kids of Ordon Village, where he's able, he inspires them, and you could see it in Colin, and it continues the story of the hero of time, where he has regrets, and he passes them on to not just his descendant, but another Link, to ease his regrets. And in Breath of the Wild, it's just memories and flashbacks. Not really much story in the present time. Not even there's a war with the Yiga going on, but you don't they not get expanded. They don't get expanded, and their leader is the complete joke. Like, I mean, Master Koga, that dude ended up killing himself. That's how much of a joke he is. And then the whole time before you even get there, you hear about the Yigas all serious. I mean, in a flashback, they're close to killing Zelda until Link intervenes. We'll get into the Yiga later though, but just need a better emphasis on story. And it looks like they could be, because they said that Breath of the Wild 2 is gonna be, if not if as dark, but and if not that, more darker than Majora's Mask, and it's pretty exciting to hear, and just to hope that they have like this big grand story, not along the lines of like Kojima, or just along the lines of previous Zelda, if not more or bigger than previous Zelda games, where it could stand on its own. And on top of that, more Zelda, because Zelda, you know, she wasn't. It's not really common for Zelda to be part of the main story, but this Zelda is kind of different. This Zelda is really involved with the story. Like, she was like, the whole flashback and backstory was about her journey of awakening her power, and at least and it is also a great opportunity to have Zelda playable, since I think it's about time we have Zelda playable, not just in the old CDI one of Gamelon, but we don't talk about that one. Just to have Zelda finally be playable would be, because I'm pretty sure that's something the fans are ready for, especially this Zelda, because she's pretty different from the rest of the Zeldas we've seen in the past. And and once again, it could, improve the dynamic and relationship between that Zelda and Link have. And don't go separating them like at the beginning of the game, and the point is to rescue Zelda again. No, don't do that. You couldn't just improve the story, and it'd be a way to implement like 2-player co-op with one person controlling Link and the other Zelda. Just another way to improve Breath of the Wild 2. Just not go down this the same old trope of having to rescue Zelda or having to go to Zelda. I just think it's about time to have Zelda playable in Legend of Zelda again, but this time done properly. Alright, dungeons. Oh boy, where do we go here? Breath of the Wild 2 needs to have better dungeons. Dungeons in Breath of the Wild, there is none. No, the thing that replaces it is the 4 divine beasts. Yeah, it's like Majora's Mask, but divine beasts, they kind of feel the same. I mean, why only have the dungeons be the divine beasts? Ocarina of Time had 10 dungeons around there, and Twilight Princess had 9. And even with all that, they all felt different and not the same. And why is it that Breath of the Wild, which has 4 dungeons, 4 divine beasts, and they all kind of feel the same? I mean, even in Twilight Princess, they had caves added to the dungeons. One in Lake Hylia and one in Hyrule Field. And they had their own interesting stuff to find, like treasure chests. Gave it like a real cave explorer vibe to it. We're definitely gonna need more than just 4 dungeons in Breath of the Wild 2. I mean, something to improve on, to distinguish it or make it seem different from the first Breath of the Wild. And there was recently a call from Nintendo for asking for dungeon level designers for Breath of the Wild 2. And seeing that gives me hopes that there will be some interesting, cool dungeons for Breath of the Wild 2. And I'm not the only one, because that was another big complaint from many people that, the dungeons felt pretty samey. There needed to be more than just four. And even Majora's, people don't complain about the four dungeons because, there was a lot to do in Majora's Mask. The dungeons were in the main point. In Breath of the Wild, they're not the main point either, but I don't know, in Breath of the Wild, they just feel kind of brushed aside, you know. Yeah, so for Breath of the Wild 2, definitely add more dungeons and stuff, and more stories and lore behind the dungeons. Speaking about customization, uh, the armor sets, you could customize Link quite a bit, mix matching armors, but this isn't about that. It's about mix matching armor pieces, like having the shoulder pads, or just being able to take off the chest piece and shoulder pads off the Hylian armor, and just putting them on anywhere else, like just like putting the pads of the Hylian armor and shoulder plate on the champion's gear, or the tunic of the wild stuff. Just being able to mix match them and whatnot. Just be really cool to have. I didn't really have a lot to add to this one. It's just one thing I just wanted to put out there. Thing to improve Breath of the Wild, just better customization with armor pieces. Why could we only have one save file in Breath of the Wild? Every other Zelda game had at least 3 save files, except for Hyrule Warriors. That one, I don't think you were able to have multiple save files on that one. Why are you only allowed to have one? If you want to start a new adventure, you play it again from the start, you're either going to have to overwrite the save file or create a new account on your Switch or Wii U. Or just Switch. I don't think you can do that on the Wii. I don't know about the Wii U, but why could you only have one? I haven't done Master Mode, and I don't really have intentions of doing Master Mode because I don't really want to replay through the game again. But I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, which I probably am. But I think that one overwrites your current save file. Maybe, I don't know. But why could you only have one? Even a game like Skyrim, even though I don't feel it's right to compare these two games because they're pretty different and they're not the same genre, but in that game you're able to have multiple save files. I don't even know how much, but you can have all these save files coexisting. But why is it that in Breath of the Wild you could only have one? Even Skyrim on the Switch you could have multiple. I just don't think it's right. People who want to replay the game, they're going to have to overwrite their save file or create another account. Because no one's going to want to overwrite their save file because that's their progress. It's the account they started on. It has all their, I don't know, it's just kind of like an attachment thing. But it'd be nice to have multiple save files. Again, like two would be fine. Multiple save files would be nice to have in Breath of the Wild too, though. The world in Breath of the Wild is empty. It's just empty. There's not a lot of stuff to do aside from the shrines and look for Korok seeds, but there's 900 Korok seeds. Who has the time to search for 900 Korok seeds? People were complaining about, Twilight Princess open world and how there's not much to do, but at least that was, not that big. Here it's like a whole map. There's not that much stuff to do. Yeah, there's overworld bosses, but they just they respawn, and most of the times you don't even have your horse because you end up ditching it and probably end up teleporting somewhere, so you're just left walking around, and I don't know, it just feels empty and barren. And yeah, that's the point, but I don't know, at least have quite a bit more stuff to do. And yeah, there's like old locations like ranch ruins and Rito village, and it's probably like Offset Island, and but I don't know, just more stuff to do. Like, yeah, you could shield surf, but you know, shields break in the game, so that kind of counteracting is shield surfing. But the only thing to do is just fight open world enemies. That gets boring after a while. And why would you do that? The only thing you end up getting from that is your swords breaking. Just improve on the open world in Breath of the Wild 2. Just make it more fun to explore. Like I'm just gonna Skyrim, Fallout, or even Just Cause 2 and 3. Just something more fun and more kind of sandboxy feeling. I don't know, I feel like I'm contradicting myself saying that, but just something to improve the open world. Because in Breath of the Wild, there's not that much stuff to do. It's pretty barren. Yeah, you could climb everything, you basically have no limitations. But there's always room for improvement, and this is one area where it kind of needs improvement. Rain in Breath of the Wild is annoying. Every time you want to climb somewhere, it's always raining. Anytime you want to, just climbing is just every time you want to climb, it always seems to rain. And then even with the thunderstorms, you get in a heated combat, and then all of a sudden a thunderstorm breaks, and you have to put everything away and run away. And then even if you're in the later stages of the game, there's a very low likely chance that you have any wooden swords or even shields on you. So you know what that means? It means you have to equip everything, either die or run away. I mean, the way to fix this in Breath of the Wild 2 is to either have less rain or have the climber's gear like fully enchanted to counteract the rain, where you could even climb on walls, stuff, or like on the rocks to even while it's raining, because it's annoying. I'm not the only one who complains about this. Everyone complains about the rain, and that even some people thought they were on hard mode because of how many times it rained. Raining is just annoying. Even after it rains, you have to wait a little bit, like a while after it rains, because the rocks and terrain are still slippery, so you still end up falling. And it's even worse when you're almost there and you run out of stamina from slipping, and then because you're out of stamina, you fall. You try to use the paraglider to try to hang on to somewhere or get somewhere, but you're over water, and out of stamina, so you let go of it and you drown and you respawn somewhere. Yeah, rain needs to be less of a problem. Either have it rain less or have something to counteract the rain. Old clothes, the old tunics, old weapons locked behind a paywall, behind amiibos. Like, why? They're already in the game. They're already coded to work, but you just need to have amiibos? Like, why? Like, by the time this was, like, Breath of the Wild was released in 2017, most of the amiibos, like, I think the Smash Bros. Amiibo, to unlock I think Epona, and I think the Tunic of Twilight, I don't even think those were for sale anymore. Half of the Link amiibos, except for like the really recent ones, aren't even for sale anymore. And the only way to get those is through eBay or Amazon, and those are third-party sellers, not even through Nintendo anymore. So in like 10 years from now, no one's gonna have access to any of these clothes because they're behind amiibos, and if they want them, they're gonna have to like pay. Since they're so rare, Nintendo doesn't really know how to stock them. They like have them only like shipped out and so for sale for like a certain time, and once they run out, they're out. They're never restocked, and the only way to buy them again or like buy them is through like third-party sellers. Since they're rare, Nintendo doesn't even stock them that well. They go from high prices like $20, $25 for like the real deal. And the way people are gonna have to go to get into these costumes is through amiibo emulation, through like AmiSwap or MUEbo or stuff like that. But having the old tunics locked behind paywalls, I don't think that was a very good move on them. Because I don't know, it's just not. Is it really worth? I don't know. It's just I'm just like not baffled because they want money, but having them locked behind paywalls and the amiibo isn't. It's not one of their best decisions to do because pretty soon, like I said multiple times, probably they're not going to be accessible in the near future for anyone who wants to play them. More enemy variety would be nice to have in Breath of the Wild too. Because when you're playing Breath of the Wild, and most of the time you're probably going to be in Hyrule Field, the only thing you'll run into is bokoblins, and guardians, and I think just kind of rarely, a moblin. You know, you're gonna have to go out of your way to find, Lionels, and then Lizalfos. They're gonna either be near Zora's domain, or just like in the Gerudo Highlands. But in the overall, there's not really much to do. Like what just bokoblins. They get pretty boring fighting. They would have been like cool and enemy variety to have like boblins or Deku Babas because they're nowhere in the game. It would have been nice to have a bigger variety than just the Bokoblins, Lizalfos, Moblins, Linos, and Hinoxes, and the occasional choose. It's like 6 enemies. Yeah, that's quite a bit, but I think it would have been nice to have a little more like Dark Nuts or the Gerudo equivalent of Dark Nut, Desert Temple, and Ocarina of Time. Just bigger enemies. Oh, about the Wizrobe, pretty rare. You're not likely to run into those unless you're actively hunting for them. And then the what's it called, the not Korax, but the I can't remember, but I'll probably have like footage of them playing in the back. But yeah, it'll be nice to just have more variety. Aside from the occasional ones, because it kind of gets boring seeing them. Except for like the Lionels, because it's really pretty rare that you run into them, and when you do, it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's it. And those are ways I think that Breath of the Wild 2 could improve over Breath of the Wild 1. Will any of these things I mentioned be implemented in Breath of the Wild 2? Maybe not. Maybe they will. But here's to Breath of the Wild 2, and looking forward to its release date. Yeah, that's it.